Good morning, ladies. Come on in. Come on into the room. Come on in and join me. Have a seat. Pull up a chair, grab your coffee, grab your journal, your pen, your Bible, and let's jump in to what God has to say for us today. Today is day 33, and I love that number. The number 33 biblically represents promise. And so God has something to say to us today in the area of perfectionism and procrastination. Good morning to those of you who are coming into the room. I'm so excited for you. Go ahead and share this with a friend. If you're like, hey, I think they're up too, just hit share, send it to a friend. Let them come join us live. But ladies, we are human beings, not human doings. I've said that a couple of times during this study because I say it a lot actually. If you hang around me often, you'd hear that come out of my mouth quite a bit. And the reason why I say it quite a bit is because I have to hear it for myself. We are human beings, not human doings. So that means we are supposed to be spending more time being than doing if our literal name is being. Like our actual title, like what we're called is a being. Shouldn't we be being more than we are doing? And it's just so amazing. God showed me this about a year ago when I started doing some things. I started creating my course. It was called Drop the Weight before, and it was still about the same thing. I changed the name to Biblical Body Plan, but it was called Drop the Weight. And I was carrying around this weight, this heavy weight, and the weight was the weight of perfectionism, getting all these things done, making sure I had so much, going on to create the course and to make sure that it was perfect, that either I was wrapped up doing too much trying to get it done, or I was procrastinating, putting it off because I didn't want to do it imperfectly. So I didn't want to do it at all. And I struggled. I was really struggling. And the reason why it was called Drop the Weight was because I do work with women in their weight loss journeys, but I work with them to way before we start working on actual weight loss. We work on our mindset and dropping the weight of emotional baggage, like we're doing during this Bible study. I'm sure there's some things that you've been able to drop off at the door and you're not going to pick them back up. Like the garbage man is picking that up. It's not coming back in your house, right? So I needed to drop off some things emotionally, just like I work with the women that I was creating the course for. And so God was showing me that I had done a lot of baggage release, so to speak, but I had more and I was picking up more along the way. Like I was going around to everybody else's house and taking their garbage too. It's just crazy because I care so much about making sure that what I say comes out in a way that makes sense. Because if I create something, it has to really be something good. And if I'm going to charge people money for it, it really needs to work and all that kind of stuff. I just have this deep, inner thing that says like it has to be done. If it's going to be done, it has to be done well. And for a long time, I actually fooled myself into thinking that it was excellence. Excellence was what I'm just somebody who likes excellence. That's not true. It was perfectionism. It was done to the degree of being ridiculous. And so I learned something through a course that I took to learn how to start a podcast. Her name was Jenna Kutcher. You may or may not know her. She's in the online space and she has a podcast called The Goal Digger. And she was just speaking on podcasting one day. And I know the Lord had set that on my heart to do, but I didn't know the first thing about starting a podcast. So I bought her course, which is what, we do when we need help. I bought her online course. It was just a course without a coaching program, but it was, perfectly fine for what I needed it to be. And it was an amazing course. But the one thing that I learned through the entire course that helped me the most wasn't how to edit a podcast or how to upload a podcast or what kind of microphone I needed for my podcast. None of that mattered. What mattered, even though those are things that do, help out, what mattered, what I remember the most is her saying that done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. And I remembered that over and over and over again because I needed it. So if you're like me, if you're in the same boat, today's for you. Today's long. I'm going to tell you that right now. Today has got lots of words in this book we are going through. if you're new here and you're just like finding this Bible study on day 33, listen, first off, you're not in the wrong place. Stick around. Second off, you can go back and watch the replays and catch up, but stick around for today. See what God has for you today. And we're going through a study called Freedom from Emotional Eating by Barb Raveling. You can get the book on Amazon. I put a link in the description, and go through it. Just go through those replays with me and let's get to it. All right, ladies. So we're starting on page 129. Today's day 33. Promise day. Let's do this. Brace yourself, she says. We're going to be talking about Mary and Martha. And I'm sorry, you know what? I forgot this is not the day of lengthiness. Thank goodness. Tomorrow is the lengthy day. Tomorrow, if you look ahead or if you are working ahead in your Bible study, day 4, Thursday, we are going to be talking about perfectionism and procrastination. At a deeper level. Today, we are jumping in to really talking about Mary, the story of Mary and Martha. And so many of us probably know that story, but the story is of these two women, and they are both loved by God the same way, but one is the doer and one is the beer. So let's jump into that. So she says we're going to be talking about Mary and Martha. So today we're going to let's see. Yeah, we're going to go to Luke 10. So if you want to just go ahead and grab your Bibles, we're going to jump in. Luke 10, we're going to read verses 38 through 42, and then we're going to jump into studying these verses. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care? My sister's left me to do all this work by myself. Tell her to help me. Now, I can only imagine, it's a big exclamation mark behind that. I can only imagine how in the world she would be talking to the Lord like this, like, oh girl, who do you think you are? Like, ooh, telling the Lord what to do. Like, tell her to help me. Sounds like, a sibling going to a parent and being like, they're not helping me with the dishes. Make them help me. And this is what Jesus says back, Martha, Martha. Oh, sweet Martha. Like he gets it. He says her name twice. Like the Lord answered, you are worried about and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what's better, and it will not be taken from her. Oh, this verse has wrecked me on many levels over and over again. And in a great way, in a really great way. Because, like I shared with you, and I'm going to share a lot more tomorrow, I'm going to share some pictures with y'all tomorrow. You're going to really love to see my messy house. It's going to happen. And when I show you these pictures tomorrow, there's a reason for it. And you're going to think, oh, her house is probably not, you may even think, I don't know what you'll think, but you may think, oh, her house isn't messy, but I'm going to explain to you why I have been Martha and can be Martha in my life a lot. Okay. I'm not the one that, I don't know why I think of Mary in this scripture as like the hippie. I don't know. I hope that doesn't offend any of y'all, but I just think the hippie, like, la la la, rainbows and butterflies and flowers and I love everybody and all the things, right? And Martha's like, get up and get some stuff done. We don't have time for this mamby pamby lovey-dovey stuff. Like, oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the way I think. So let's get real for a minute. So let's see what's going on. Let's read the passage. We did that. And she says to record what the following people are doing. So what's Jesus doing? He's teaching. That's what he's doing. Clearly, he's teaching because the disciples were hanging out there, right? She was listening to what God had to say, what Jesus had to say at his feet. All right, Mary, what's she doing? She's sitting at the Lord's feet, listening as he's talking. Ladies, I don't know about you, but what would you do if Jesus walked into your busy life, literally, physically walked into your busy life and sat down where you're at, whether you were in your office or wherever you were at, whether you were watching TV, doing the dishes, cleaning your baseboards, whatever it is, what would you do? Would you want to sit down and listen to what he had to say? Or would you just be like, you go ahead and talk. I'm going to keep finishing this. I'll hear you from over here. Think about that for a second. What was Martha doing? Well, Martha was being distracted by all the preparations. Martha was doing the thing that we would all think is like, duh, she needs to get it done if somebody's going to eat. Like, how many times have I said that? If we're going to eat, like, I have to do it. If I don't do it, we're not going to eat. If I don't do it, it isn't going to get done. Hello? Like, how many of you have said that with me? Let me know in the chat. Please let me know in the chat that I am not alone in this, because I've said it so many times. If it doesn't get done, or if I don't do it, this is what it's basically what I've said. I haven't said it this way necessarily. I don't think, at least, exactly, but this is what I'm saying. If I don't do it, that's what I was going to say. If I don't do it, it isn't going to get done. Or if I don't do it, it ain't going to get done right. I'm going to have to go back and redo it. So why don't I just do it anyway by myself? Forget asking for help. Yep. Yep. Thank you, ladies, for letting me know that. Absolutely. Okay, I'm not alone. That's really good to hear. And those of you who are catching the replay, you can watch the chat in the replay. You can comment below and join the conversation. And you can let me know. You can let us know, where you stand with all of this. And always, feedback is awesome. So this is what Barb says. She says, poor Martha, she's feeling overwhelmed with all the work, and Mary, who's an able worker, strong and capable, just sitting around at Jesus's feet doing nothing. Wow. Does it surprise you that Jesus doesn't encourage Mary to help her sister to get up and be like, oh, why don't you go do what the women are supposed to do? Go in there and cook me dinner. Wow. Ouch, that was mean. Get in there and cook my dinner, woman. I've met men like that. And I'm like, you are a jerk. But anyways, no, Jesus does not do that. So does it surprise you, though? Wouldn't most of us parents say something like, you're right, Mary, get up and help Martha. Go help your sister. Get up, help your sister. She shouldn't have to do all this work by herself. But Jesus doesn't say that. So why do you think he didn't make Mary help? Well, on page 129, there's a fill in the blank. And I say this because all the doing, like all this stuff, I don't have proper English sometimes, y'all, but all the doing wasn't even necessary. He knew that it didn't matter. He didn't require anything of them at all. He didn't walk in their house and be like, chop, chop, get to it, better cook me some food and make sure this is all done and it has to be done this way. Absolutely not, right? So when Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, she was obeying the first commandment, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. She was doing that by sitting at his feet and listening to what he had to say. She was loving him more than the stuff that needed to be done. And she understood that the service wasn't important at that moment. And for those of us, if you know love languages at all, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages. If you've never heard of that, it's an incredible book. Helps us to learn how to love others well, and in a language that they can hear. Because if you're talking to somebody who only speaks Chinese, for instance, and you're talking to them in English, they're not going to understand you. And the same is true, for love, so that you can't necessarily hear love. So if you don't hear it in your right language. So I am an acts of service person. I hear love by people doing things for me. Like, if you want to say you love me, I need that too, for sure. But the way I think about it is words are cheap. Hey, words are cheap. Show me. Do something. You love me? Great. Take the trash out. You love me? Great. Sweep that floor, please, which I love sweeping the floor, so I'll totally do it. But sweep the floor. You love me? Do something for me. Or buy me something if you're going to buy. I don't care about stuff like gifts at all. But if you're going to buy me a gift that makes my life easier, or gives me some kind of service like a massage of some sort, or like getting my nails done, so that I can just be and somebody else can serve me for a while. And it's not that I need to be served in a narcissistic way. That is not what I mean by that. But the love language of acts of service is somebody just simply saying, hey girl, can I keep your kid for you for an hour? Can I take, your son and go play with him for 30 minutes, so you might be able to do something else that you need to do, or play, or not play that I could go play by myself. No. No. Wow, that's how much. See, y'all, I'm a 5-year-old mom, and I play with my kid a lot. So yeah. Anyways, but this, I believe, is Martha too. Like, her love language is acts of service. So she was trying to just love the Lord. At least that's the way I think about it. She was trying to love the Lord. But that acts of service can get, a little bit nuts if we go over the line. So Martha didn't see it that way. So what did she think about Mary's behavior? She didn't see the way that Jesus saw her sitting at the feet at her, excuse me, that first commandment of loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Martha didn't see, oh, that this the Mary's just loving on the Lord. Oh, isn't she so sweet? No, she probably thought she was just being lazy. She was being lazy and she should be over here helping me. And that's on page 130. You're fill in the blank at the top. You can write what you think. When I give you a fill in the blank, these are just things that come into my own mind, okay? So, what did she think about Mary's behavior? I believe she just thought she was being lazy, not that she was loving the Lord her God with all her heart, mind, and soul. And I'm sure that we can all relate. I can definitely relate. When you have a million things to do, it's super frustrating to see someone just sitting there doing nothing. But here's my question: do we really have to do all those millions of things? Or do we have sometimes just kind of think we have to do them? What do you think? Do we have to do them or do we just think we have to do them? Well, I think I do a lot of unnecessary things that I really don't have to do at all. Like my son, my daughter, my older son, they would prefer me to be with them than to have the baseboards cleaned in the house, or then rather than have, the floor vacuumed all the time. Now they do appreciate having a clean house because they've never not had a clean house, like a filthy house, I should say. Like it's disshuffled and disorganized and stuff, here and there, and the sink's full of dishes still right now, actually, that I didn't get to yesterday. And it's not because I didn't have time to get to the dishes yesterday. I did have time. I had plenty of time. But what I ended up spending my time doing was playing with my 5-year-old. He would much rather me be with him than doing the dishes. But if my house got to the point where it was like, you can't walk through it, there's dog poop on the floor. I've been in homes like that. My husband goes in homes like that where it's like, oh, he appreciates the clean house that that I keep when he comes home from work and has to go into different people's houses installing internet and such. But they would appreciate it a lot more if it looked really crazy bad. But they would prefer me being with them. So do you think you do a lot of unnecessary things that really you're like, oh, I have all this stuff to do. I have to get that done. I have to get this done. I have to do this. I have to do that. Do you? Do you really? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest, probably not. I'm sure there's some things that you could lay down and say, you know what? If it doesn't get done, it's really not the end of the world. Or if they have to get done, guess what I could do? Delegate. What? No way. Yes, absolutely. I can delegate that. And if it doesn't get done perfectly, who cares? If somebody is like crazy about the dishwasher being loaded correctly and you're complaining about how your husband loads the dishwasher, that's not okay. Like, just let it go and let them do it. Especially if you're that person who's complaining that the husband is loading it or kids are loading it wrong, whatever wrong looks like. Y'all, if you see my dishwasher, guaranteed you'd think I was loading it wrong because I'm like, I just throw stuff in there, however it will fit, and things get clean, and that's just the way it is, and I'm fine. I hardly rinse things unless it has food, like big things of food on it. I just throw stuff in the dishwasher. Some of you would be appalled by that. Like, how could you ever? Well, I don't have time for perfectionism in the dishes area. First off, I just don't have time for it. It's not something that I care about at all. Like, I just want to get clean dishes, and it doesn't matter the process in which it happens. So if somebody gets in there and does it, I'm thankful. But if you're that person who's like, I cannot, I have to go in there and redo it, why? Why do you have to redo it? This is something that God is trying to get through to you today and ask. So Martha could have sat down at the feet of Jesus too. She really could have. She could have either postponed dinner and said, we're going to just be eating later, or made a lot less of an elaborate meal. She didn't have to make such a big hoopla over it, right? Do you think that would have been the right thing to do? Do you think that if she had chosen to do one of those two things, either put the meal off or did less, that it would have been the right thing to do? Let me know in the chat. So think of your own life. Do you ever skip time with God in the morning because you just have too much to do? I hit the ground running, Catherine. My feet hit the floor. I am off to the races. Shoom, here I go. Is that your life? Is that your life? Do you ever skip time with God in the morning because of that? Or do you ever rush through it so that you can get to the other things you have to do? You're like, no, girl, I spend time with God, but I am quick and in a hurry. I am in and out. Like, I got stuff to do because you checked it off your list. You're like, oh, checked off my God time. Yes, moving on to the next thing. Like, is that your life? That's been my life before. If so, how would you need to change your thinking in order to make God a priority? Well, I wrote yes and yes to both those things. Absolutely. Monica, you never had a dishwasher. That's pretty awesome. But yes to everything. You know, I've spent time well, I've spent time with God, but the time wasn't spent well because I was rushing through it or thinking about my to-do list. How many of us have been there? Thinking about my to-do list, my grocery list, my whatever thing that need to be done, a song that's playing in my head, whatever. I spent so much of my mornings when I would spend time with God, because it wasn't an everyday thing, that distracted that it really didn't matter. I was thinking about what needed to be done for the day, and just different things, cares of life. Right, was squashing out the seed, the word that God was having. We talked about the seeds, So yes, absolutely, everything else can wait. I really think that my life would change if I had this mindset that everything else can wait, that God comes first and everything else can wait. It's everything else can wait. I'd really get more done, honestly, in less time if I spent more time with God, if I gave my first fruits, the law of first fruits, just like we tithe, if you tithe, if maybe you don't tithe, or maybe you don't understand tithing or whatever. So I'm not assuming that everyone does. But say you tithe and you understand the law of first fruits, right? That you give God your first, your best, you give it to him first. And what happens? He takes that and he gives you back. He multiplies what you've even given him, gives it back to you, and then more. So if I were to give Jesus my first fully, completely to him, he would actually exponentially multiply my time. And I've heard people say this over and over again. I listen to a lot of online pastors and people that have come through that, maybe I've heard an evangelist at a church or something like that, where I've went to a conference and I heard them as a speaker, and I now follow them online, and I'll watch or listen to their stuff. I don't really sit and watch people talk, but I do listen to them. And there's different people God's put in my life during certain seasons that I can learn from specific things, and sometimes they're just people that I'm always going back to constantly. But I'm like that. I have to, be that way. And I remember this guy saying that he spent like 4 hours a day in prayer every single day. I was like, what? How in the world do you do that? Like, you must not have anything to do. No, he has a ginormous ministry, huge amungo. Those are both crazy words, I know. But he has this big ministry. How does he get it all done and spend 4 hours a day, every single day in prayer, quiet time? What? That is like impossible for me to grasp, right? I don't even understand it. But it is he did a whole teaching one time, but basically he spent that time with the Lord, and the Lord took care of all the things that he would have been frantically running around trying to figure out in those 4 hours of time. The Lord took care of them. So what did that do when the Lord took care of them? Gave him back his time, right? He just took care of it. So I gave you guys a little example in the week where we dealt with worry. And I said that Joyce Meyer, I remember one time her talking about somebody that she had heard having a worry box, where everything that they worried about, they would put in this one box. They would just write it down if something started coming up and they were worrying about, how am I going to do this or get this done, or this needs to happen or whatever. They would write it down and put it in this box. And only one day a week, he would go open the box and worry about all the things in that box. And by the time that week, like it was Wednesday or something, Wednesday could be, worry Wednesday, like they say, motivational Monday, transformation Tuesday, worry Wednesday. Who's excited about Wednesday? Nobody. Well, the guy would open his box, and by the time he would pull out those worries, there would be hardly anything left in there to worry about because it had already taken care of itself. Isn't that amazing? Or God had taken care of it truly. So, yes, I believe that I would actually get more done in less time if I were to give more time to God. So think about it. It's kingdom minded. Kingdom works different than the world. Like God's kingdom works different than the kingdom of this earth. So Luke 10:40 states that Martha was distracted with the preparations that had to be done. So the Greek word here is diakonia. This is the only verse in the New Testament where it's translated preparations or service in some other translations. So it's that word is usually it's translated ministry, she said. So Martha's ministry was to prepare food for Jesus and the other guests that were in the house, and she wasn't really happy about it. She was like, oh, to do this again. At least she wasn't happy about Mary not helping her. Okay. She maybe have been all right with it as long as it wasn't just her having to do it by herself, right? Do you think that Martha's attitude affected her ministry? Why or why not? Absolutely, I think it affected her ministry because she did it begrudgingly. Like she probably did. I can't like assume I knew every thought in Martha's head. I don't. But yet I feel like she was more focused on all the doing and what had to be done, the checklist, than on the person, right? She felt like she had to do some big production in order to serve. Like, I have to make it big and make it loud and make it, all this stuff. And it has to be perfect. And it was probably even more about self, where she might have been thinking, they're going to be like, good job, Martha. Good job on this meal. This is the best meal ever. It's so beautiful. You've laid out this table is set divinely. Have you ever been to somebody's house where you're like, do they even live in this house? It is perfect. You cannot find any dirt or dust anywhere. Have you ever walked into somebody's house and their table is already set before there's no meal happening, but it's set, and it's set like one of those home and garden magazines. And you're like, what the world? If that's your home, great. That's never been my home. And when I walk into people's homes like that or like that, I'm like, I feel a little uncomfortable. I feel like this is weird, but it's just it's just more like, look, it's for show. Okay, it's for show. It's for show. It's for to say, look at this. It's beautiful, isn't it? Look what I did. Look at it. It's for show, right? And that's what it is. It is for show. It's a display. It's displayed. Nobody's using it. It's just displayed. It's for show. That's what it is. So if you're one of those people and I'm offending you right now, I'm not. I'm not saying you're trying to show off. I'm just saying it is for show. It's a display, is it not? Like, think about it that way. And so I'd love to actually, I would love that. Like, I think it's pretty, but at the same time, I would feel a little uncomfortable. Like, oh, don't anybody sit at the kitchen table because you might mess up my display. Or gotta move all that off there and then put it all back or whatever. It's just, it's kind of a little nuts. So where was we? Where were we? Where was we? Oh my goodness, y'all. All right. So what would Martha have needed to change her bad attitude? So what she would have needed to change her bad attitude in that moment is time with Jesus. She would have needed a perspective shift, a mindset change, whatever you want to call it. She would have needed a perspective shift. She would have needed to go from the doing to the being and put down all the doing. So maybe if Martha had spent time with Jesus like Mary was doing, her heart would have been better prepared to serve with a good attitude. Unfortunately, though, she was caught up in her ministry and she didn't have time to spend time with him. Ouch. Ladies, I don't know where you're at in this life. I don't know what you do. I've been in a season of my life before where I served in ministry in the church. I served in ministry and it was my job at the same time. So my job was my ministry. I got paid for it, but then I did a whole lot extra. I did a lot extra. I got my worth and value and identity. I found it, my identity in what I did because I was given accolades for it over and over again. But I would do so many things. I was the girl that nobody knew scrubbed the toilets. I was the girl that was always behind the scenes serving people, coming up with the meal plan, making sure that the food was there, getting the catering, putting out the pretty decor for show that people were actually going to use, making sure that all the stuff was there, inventorying it, all this stuff. I was always the one that was doing all the things behind the scenes to make it all work up front. And I was okay with that because I wasn't an upfront girl. So I didn't need to be upfront. I never thought I needed to be. But I do remember many times feeling like that there was others in the church that should be helping me. Like they should be helping me. I get paid to do X job, but I'm doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. This is nuts. Like I would think that to myself. I am doing the job of 20 people and they're just sitting out there and they're just sitting out there doing nothing or just chatting it up over there. They're just having a good old prayer session, maybe. What? I remember having thoughts like this before where I'm just like, whatever. Like just I would think people are lazy sometimes. I would just think thoughts that were just not nice. And I would get so caught up in my ministry that I didn't have time to spend with Jesus. I was not being filled. I was not being filled. I was just simply doing things. Like doing things that looked like it was ministry. That's what we called it, right? But good gravy. Like I just walked into there and was like, we're getting it done. And it really didn't have a whole lot to do with God. But God used that season of my life to show me so much about this concept that when I was mopping the floor when nobody was there, I would come on, to the church offices on my day off, and I would mop the floors and have music playing in my ear or something. And I would just mop the floors and he would speak to me. I would clean the toilets. He would speak to me. I would, wipe out sinks. I would do whatever these things needed to be done that nobody knew, right? But the pastors, but nobody else knew. And I would do that and I would just hear the Lord speaking to me. And it finally got to the point where the service was unto the Lord. I'm scrubbing this toilet unto the Lord. So it just had to get to that where, but it didn't. It didn't at first. It was just this attitude of like, I'm over here doing all this stuff and y'all are leaders and you should be over here helping me. And you're just sitting over there talking and chatting it up and acting like, you have some place that you don't have to do something because you have a badge or something like that. Like I would have these thoughts. It was terrible. It wasn't good. It wasn't nice. It wasn't kind. But God's worked on me a lot, y'all. Okay, a lot, and I'm so thankful for that. I do not think about things like that now. I've shifted my thinking in a lot of different ways, and I'm very thankful that God has helped me with that. But there's still things that need to be worked out, no doubt, for sure in my life. Okay. So she says, my friend, if we're not spending time with God, we're not emotionally in a good place to do ministry anyway. Isn't that the truth? Wow. We need that time with Him in order to prepare our hearts to serve with the right attitude. And that is what I mean when I say, if you're not filled, you can't pour. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give compassion if you don't feel like you have a place for compassion in your life. If you feel like no, you don't deserve compassion, if you're really super hard on yourself, you're not going to be kind and compassionate to others. So it's this filling and releasing thing, right? So according to this passage, what's more important, time spent with God or ministry to others? Because I think that a lot of us get this wrong and we are service to others based, where we think, I'm doing all the things. I'm in the thousand ministries. I work this ministry, I work that ministry. I do this thing and I do that thing. And I listen to everybody's problems and everybody's concerns. So I am righteous. I am awesome. I'm great. We get this thing about ourselves where we're like, I'm doing all the work of God. Okay, but are you being with God? If the answer is no, or sometimes or a little bit here and there, then maybe it's time to set down all the things that you're doing and focus on the first. Go back to the basics. So, according to this passage, what's more important, time spent with God or ministry to others? I think time spent with God is 100% more important than serving and ministering to others, because you can't do that well if you don't spend time with God. So I noticed the importance of keeping God first, even in writing this Bible study, she said. At first, I thought, I'm just going to combine my quiet time with my writing time. When I study the verses that I'm going to write about, that's going to be my time with God. But it didn't work. I soon found myself slipping away from God and not feeling close to Him. I made a commitment at that point to always have my quiet time before I spent any time working on the Bible study, no matter how busy I was. I love that she said that. I need to be going to God every day for my own restoration. If I only go to Him as a means to minister to others, ooh, listen, this is for somebody today, then it won't be long until I have nothing left to give to others. If you are only reading quotes on the internet to tell somebody else how to live their life and you're not applying any of that to your own, there's a problem. Have you ever thought about that? The people that post things out on the internet, on Instagram or wherever else you see people posting these great, quotes, inspirational things and yada yada, and you're like, "Oh, they're just living their life the best that, they're so amazing." But not necessarily, not necessarily. So anyways, they may just be learning things so that they can tell, just basically regurgitate it for other people, and it hasn't actually transformed their life and changed anything about them at all. Yeah, that's right, Monica. Smoke and mirrors sometimes, for sure. So Martha needed that time with Jesus to renew her heart. She needed to realize that spending time with God was way more important than accomplishing things on her to-do list. She also had to accept the fact that Mary wasn't always going to do what she wanted her to do. Exactly. Can't control everybody else. Jesus could have performed a miracle and put food on the table. He could have been like, girl, I got you. Done. Right? He could have. Or he could have made Mary get up and help. But he didn't do either of those things. If Martha had gotten what she wanted, then there would have been no reason for her to work on her bad attitude and her wrong priorities. It wouldn't have been any reason. So, by not fixing Martha's problems for her, Jesus gave her an opportunity to grow. Let's start saying that. Like, I am going through some stuff right now. Maybe this is just your opportunity to grow. This is your opportunity to grow. That's really maybe what's happening. So each time we're in a difficult situation, we have a choice. We can either cling to our rights, quote unquote, our rights, what we think we deserve or we have a right to, or we can give them up and submit them to God and say, like, you know what, I don't really even have any rights. Because the truth is what enables us to go willingly. So, have you ever been in a situation where you had to do an unfair amount of work compared to everyone else? Yes. I just shared a little bit with you. If so, how did it make you feel and how did you respond? Well, like I said, yes, I served others while they received. I served and served and served and served and served while they got to be at the event, while they got to hear the teaching, while they got to be in worship. And I'm out there cleaning this or doing that or stocking this or making sure this got done. Yes, 100%. But I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it. I did. I mean, it took me a minute to get there where I was like, to get my mindset in the right spot, truly. But once I did, I really did enjoy serving the people that I served. And I didn't do it begrudgingly. I really enjoyed it a ton. It filled me in a way that I love to serve other people. It actually helped me come out of some of the darkest times in my life when I started serving other people, going into outreach ministries, doing different things, seeing people in worse off situations than me that I could love on and encourage and pray for. And it stopped becoming about me and about really truly about others, but I still had some things missing, but I did actually enjoy it. So how did it make you feel when you've been in a situation where you have a lot more work to do than everybody else and it seems like you're the one that's getting stuck with all of it, right? So when we're in a situation like that, we have four choices. One, we can serve God, we can serve with a good attitude. Two, we can serve with a bad attitude. Three, we can stop serving or simplify it in some ways with an I'm willing to try a different way of looking at life attitude. Or four, we can stop serving with a vengeful, well, fine, if you're not going to serve, I'm not going to serve attitude. So I'm just going to be honest with you, ladies, little disclaimer as we move forward in this. As I read that paragraph over and over and over again on page 131, I cannot quite wrap my mind around how she wrote 3 and 4. So I'm a little confused by this part of the study, but I'm like, hey, that's okay. Just moving on. So if you find when we're answering these questions that are coming up here, we're about to be wrapping this up. But as I answer some of these questions, if you don't agree, that's okay, because maybe you totally understand the way she wrote that and you get it, and I don't. So maybe I'm just like, well, I just don't get it. Okay. So which option or options do you think would be more stressful? I think option 2 would be more stressful, and that's to serve with a bad attitude. So, which option or options do you think would lead to the most growth in your relationship with God and your character, and why? And I said 3 and 4, both. I said 3 and 4 because of the perspective shift in a different way of thinking. When you switch your thinking, when you start thinking when you stop thinking one way and you start thinking another way, as long as the stopping is the bad, the thinking that's hindering you, and the different way of thinking is much more in alignment with the word of God and a positive and moving on and moving forward, then it can change your life completely. It can help you grow, can help your character and so many other things. So think of your own life. Which option do you tend to gravitate towards? Do you serve with a bad attitude? Do you serve with this attitude of like, well, if they're not doing it, I'm not doing it. Do you do that? And why do you think you take that approach? Why do you think you have that going on in your mind when you do it? So just answer that for yourself. Can you force yourself to take the first or the third option? Let's read those again. So the first or third, serve with a good attitude is number 1. And the third option was stop serving or simplify it in some way with a I'm willing to try a different way of looking at life attitude. So you can serve with an attitude of I'm willing to look at this a little bit differently, life a little bit differently. So do you think you could force yourself to take one of those options? If not, if you're like, no, I definitely could not. No. What would you need to do if you wanted to take one of those options? What would be the benefits of taking the first and third options? So if you wanted to take one of those options, you're going to need to be transformed by the renewing of your mind according to Romans 12:2. That's what you're going to need to do. Deal with it, right? Deal with your mindset. The interesting thing is that the best option to reduce stress are usually the best options for our relationship with God as well. The best options to reduce stress eating ladies out there, is also usually the best option for our relationship with God. If we want to have the strength to take those options, though, we're going to need to steep ourselves in the truth, according to John 8:31. Think about what it means to steep a tea bag. That tea bag is fully immersed in the hot water until it is like sucked out and completely, mingled with the water. So the water is now tea. It's no longer actually just hot water, right? So that's how we have to think about our relationship with God that way. We're this tea bag that's in our little bubble, and God is the hot water. And when we come into his presence, we are steeping in him, him and us, and we and him, right? We are steeping ourselves in him, and we are becoming one, where there's no way to tell where the water ends and the tea starts. The tea bag starts. It just all comes together, and it's all together, right? So think about being steeped in the truth. You have to be steeped in the truth and abiding in God's word. Abiding is another way of saying being, together like that. All right. So um, let's see here. Mary is our example. She's abiding in the word. Jesus is the word, right? He was speaking. He was right there in front of her face. But Martha was so busy doing all the things that she didn't have time for the word. The truth is, we need God every single day. Every single day. This isn't a relationship that we can just, rest on past visits. This is something you have to continue to be like actively, intentionally seeking out in your life. So she says, in closing, we're going to read Isaiah 26:3, and we're going to write that down. So if you haven't written it down in your book already, write it down with us, or grab your journal, write down this verse, and you can go back and write the whole verse later, or just pause it, write it down if you're watching on the replay. Okay. So this is a promise verse. I love promise verses. They're all throughout scripture. Usually there's a commandments attached to a promise. So obedience brings blessing, right? So Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because they trust in you. So the promise is your mind is going to be in perfect peace if you keep your mind stayed on him. If you trust God, you will have your mind kept in perfect peace. You will be in perfect peace. If you're thinking right now, I just need a little peace, anxiety is overwhelming me. If I need a little peace right now, how much time are you spending with God? That's your prescription. That's your prescription. Try that. If you're like, I just need to get on anxiety medicine or something like that, maybe. But maybe you just need to take some ashwagandha and naturally calm down, what's going on in your brain, because maybe you've been in fight or flight mode for way too long and your body needs a little help resetting. Ashwagandha is just a natural supplement. You can get it in gummy form. I don't know if you can get it any other way, but I get it in gummy form. I actually am not on ashwagandha anymore, but I was for a season, and it helped me so much because the anti-anxiety medicine that they put me on after my dad died made me gain 17 pounds in 3 weeks, y'all, because the medicine opened up like this gaping hole in my stomach. It felt like that could never be filled. And I was hungry, like insatiably hungry. Nothing was filling me up no matter what I ate. I was just so hungry all the time and always looking for the more as far as food goes. And I gained 17 pounds. Well, I didn't realize, I should have looked it up. The number one side effect of that medication was weight gain. And I was like, ugh, no. 3 weeks, I went to the doctor, and he did like a follow-up visit to see how I was doing on the medicine. And he said, he weighed me like they always do, right? The nurse weighed me, and he walked into the room and he's like, what is going on? I was like, he said, I think we're going to have to test you for thyroid issues. I said, no, I think you just probably need to test me to see how much McDonald's is in my bloodstream because it's just me eating terrible food and lots of it. And he was like, oh, I was like, well, yeah. And I started explaining, and I said, I'm getting off this medication. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Do you want a different one? And I just said, no, I'm going to try a natural approach. I tried ashwagandha. My friend recommended that. I had never even heard of it before, and it was really helpful. I mean, so helpful that I stayed on it for about a year until I felt like I was leveled out and everything was good and normal in my life. And it was not that my external circumstances changed, but the internal had been balanced, thankfully, because some of that's hormonal too. And also, my dad had just died. Also, I was just eating the whole world, not just because of the medicine, but because at that point in my life, emotional eating was still not even discussed as something to be healed in my life, or I didn't even realize I was an emotional eater yet at that point. So there, it was just really helpful for me. So you may need to get you some ashwagandha, whatever else calms you down, okay, whatever else it is that can calm you. Some good I do instrumental worship music. I listen to Abide Christian meditation. Whatever it is that can calm your thoughts, your the storm in your mind is what I call the thought storm. Whatever it is that can calm that, and spend more time. Purpose to spend more time with God every single day, and give it just to give it 20 days, give it 21 days. Okay, 21 days is 3 weeks, so give it 21 days. Give it 3 weeks where you're spending more time with God, and see how your anxiety levels change. Just see, just do a little test, experiment, get curious about things, see what happens. Take control of your life in a way that like God's you give God control, but take control. Like don't just let things happen to you like a bag in the wind or a leaf going down the river. You can stand up and say, "Hey, I actually can do something about this. I actually have a choice to change what's going on in my life. Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that I'm going to exercise my ability to do that." So you can do those things. See what happens and let me know if you decide you want to do this as an experiment. Let me know if you're struggling with anxiety like crazy. So ladies, tomorrow we're going to be jumping into procrastination and perfectionism at a crazy deep level. It's going to be a lot of reading, a long amount of reading. And I'm going to share a little bit with you from my own personal life, but we'll probably keep it as much on either I'm going to skip a lot of the reading in here or something will happen. Okay. But if you don't have the study yet, definitely check the link below. If you loved today's lesson and God had something to say to you today in today's lesson, just click the thumbs up on this video. Let me know that it definitely was for you today and God had something to say. And ladies, I just speak a blessing over you. I pray your whole entire day is blessed when you come in and when you go out, that you are just going to feel his love at a whole new level today. And you're going to just be able to release all the doing that you think you need to get done and go spend some time with him quietly right now, even in prayer, as you have a few more minutes that you've laid aside, 6 to 7, right? We said about an hour. So those of you who are watching live, at least maybe spend the next 10 minutes or so just with the Lord and just consecrate your day to him. Give him your thoughts, give him your to-do list, let him handle it, and just spend some time letting him love you. Just let him love on you today. So I just pray, God, you would just show up and show out in a special way for them today, that they would feel your love at a whole new level right now, right where they're at, and be able to receive that in a peaceful atmosphere, God. And I just thank you for who you are. And ladies, if you are loving this Bible study, I just want you to know I have I call it a mini course, but it's really just a mini course compared to my big program, the Biblical Body Plan signature course. But this one is so amazing. If you just want to get started on some level, digging into healing your emotions from a mental health professional's perspective with biblical principles for health, I have a course called Overcoming Emotional Eating God's Way. And I would love to share that with you. I'm going to actually just share a little link for you in the chat so you can see that. But it's also going to be for those of you who are catching this on the replay. It will be in the description and in the comments below also, so you can find it easily. It's just a smaller course that will take you a lot less time than going through the entire thing. And then there's no coaching attached to it or anything. So it's self-study, but it comes with a workbook. And it's going to walk you through 6 modules of specifically how our mind is connected to our body and how food affects our mood and how mood affects our food decisions and all of that. We're going to really dive in, dissect some things. You're going to learn how to feel, deal, and heal. You're going to learn how to quit allowing self-sabotage and food and your emotions run the train, run the bus of your life. Call it driving the bus. Like, take back the control of your life in this area, and you'll be able to heal from so many other things that have gone on, the pain of the past that you may not even be aware you're carrying anymore. So I dive into, healing trauma and things like that, and in a different way that is it's just helpful. It's so helpful. So if you're tired of emotional eating, like wrecking your life, if you're tired of dealing with the pain of the past, of trauma and all that kind of stuff, just jump in over there. The Overcoming Emotional Eating God's Way. I put the link over there. Ladies that are in the chat that are already part of the biblical body plan, this is not for you. This is not for you. So don't worry about that. Don't jump into that, because you already have a lot of this training and teaching and all that stuff through me and through the biblical body plan signature course in there too. But this is just a shortened and condensed version of a portion of that bigger course that I have out there for you. So take advantage of that, look at it, and start there. If you want to just start somewhere with, figuring out how I work and figuring out, how I help women, and you're ready to just say, okay, I really am tired of spending money on diet foods and diet plans that end up just leaving me, with all the weight gain still, and you're tired of spending money. If you're just already spending, like, $150 a month on some kind of weight loss pill or some kind of diet plan or diet foods, that aren't just foods you get at the grocery store for regular life. If you're already spending that kind of money and you're not getting the results, you're just like constantly pouring it in and it's constantly going in the garbage can. Go check out this course, because it's going to help you quit doing that. You're going to stop wasting your money on stuff that doesn't actually get you results, and start investing your money in a place that will get you the results. So whether or not it's this small course that I'm sharing with you right now, small doesn't mean any less incredibly impactful and valuable, because it definitely is. But if you're just like, I just don't want to commit to the full program yet with the biblical body plan, that's fine. But if you're like, hey, no, I need all of it. I need the whole plan. I need to work with you, Catherine. I know that I've been wasting money, throwing it away, doing things that I hope is going to work one day, but it's not, living on a pipe dream, right? Like, I know I'm trying to do these things and I'm spinning my wheels, and you're ready to stop spinning your wheels. You're ready to get healthy, lose the weight for good, emotionally and physically. Just go to biblicalbodyplan.com. Join us right now. Right now, registration is open and it's discounted by 40% even over there. So you can do that. Okay. So I just wanted to throw that out for you, everybody, so you can have the option to do that. And I don't know why I had not thought to offer that what I call a mini course to you already, the Overcoming Emotional Eating God's Way, but you can. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, it's all in the show notes. It's all in the description. Wherever you're listening, I put it there for you. It's in the chat too, ladies. But that's it for today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, where we're going to uncover and heal from perfectionism and deal with procrastination. All right, ladies, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.